Yes, it's time. Welcome back to Small Room Audio. It's the start of our Versus series and the fight between speakers. In the red corner, we have the Fyne Audio F500. Isn't it looking beautiful? The pretty boy of speakers. And then in the blue corner, we have the lovely and familiar Triangle Borea BR02, an old favourite here in the Small Room Audio battleground. Right. Are you ready? It's time! Let's get ready to rumble! Oh, that woman has a mean right hook. Anyway, Small Room Audio review, the Versus series, Fyne F500 versus the Triangle Borea BR02. Right, let's have a look at the build quality first of all. The Fyne F500, isn't it pretty? It's very, very nice indeed. It's got that black gloss finish, it's very inert as a cabinet, it's got a down-firing port, so that goes into the grilled area at the bottom there, and it's got a very nice ISO flare driver, which is concentric, so you've got the tweeter coming out of the middle. Binding posts on the back, well, they're all right, aren't they? But they're not the nicest I've seen, but they're certainly not the worst. Wire wiring's possible there, and we've got a metal connector so that you can use just single wires as well. It's very pretty. I think this would look exceptionally good in a modern living room, and I like the look of them a lot. The triangles, for their price point, look all right. I think they spent most of the money on the materials to make them sound good, and actually that's what I prefer. This is a hi-fi channel, it's all about the sound for me. The looks do come secondary, but if it was a looks contest, I'd be picking the Fyne F500. Now, let's talk about the price. I mentioned it there. The Fyne F500 is £760 in the gloss black finish that we've got here, and the triangles are only £320, a big difference, over twice as much. So why are we comparing an apple with a pear? Well, first reason, I own both of these speakers, so it makes it easy to compare them, and I know them very well. But also, secondly, they both image really well, and they've both got excellent sound staging, but the rest of their sound is very different. So actually it's quite nice to look at an apple and pear and sort of describe it to you so you can choose which you'd prefer to buy. So let's get into the detail. They're both 89 dB in sensitivity, and you can use them across a range of amplifiers. I found they worked very nicely with the Schitt Aegir paired with the Freya. I've tried it with a Mytek Brooklyn Amp Plus, which is very good, particularly with the triangles. And then I've got the Big Daddy tube amp, which is the Line Magnetic 508IA, which kind of rounds off some of the edges and gives it even more holographic soundstage. Let's talk about soundstage. So in all of these comparisons, I'll probably lead off with the Fyne F500 because I've already done the review for the triangles. Do check that out, that's in the description box below if you haven't seen it. Sound staging, right, Fyne Audio, it's very diffuse. So imagine you kind of throw a load of flour in the air and it creates a big kind of powder dust cloud. That's kind of what the sound's like. It's very atmospheric, it's all over the place. But within that, the imaging's quite pinpoint, and it's quite accurate as to where those different instruments and voices come from. I really like it. Compared to the triangles perhaps don't give it quite as much air and atmosphere, but they're just as good, giving you the horizontal plane left to right for imaging and specificity of the instruments. I think perhaps even the triangles might give you a slightly better depth of sound in the soundstage, although it's very close. They're both quite good in that regard. Going on to the sort of, I guess, the dynamic output, both are quite good for dynamics. They're not going to beat a Klipsch, so if you want big dynamics, big excitement, look more in the range of the Klipsch RP600M, which are a much more exciting speaker than both of these, but they do different things. And if you want something that's maybe a little bit more refined and even better at the imaging, then go a little bit higher for the KEF LS50s. But these are doing something different, and I think tonally you've got a winner in the triangle because they are very organic and natural, and they give you that sort of lovely tonal quality of guitars and human voices, whereas the Fyne, yeah, not so much there. I've got to say, tonal quality is a little bit more nasally. It's certainly a much thinner speaker and needs to be paired with thicker butch equipment to really get the best out of it. But that said, you know, they both perform pretty well. Going down the sort of elements of the speaker from the lows Well, I'll go from the highs to the lows. Starting off with the sort of tweeter, this is where it gets difficult to talk about the Fyne Audio F500 because it's a little bit shouty, particularly for female voices. Because I said it was, it's quite thin. You get some upper registers, and it can be quite hard. I'll describe it as a kind of, a Glaswegian who's kind of come up to you and said, "Yeah, I don't want you to build me landside, lads." That's really, really poor Glaswegian accent. I am a quarter Scottish, so therefore that qualifies me to be able to do awful Scottish accents. Anyway, back to my Glaswegian. It's a little bit hard and scary and not that pleasant to listen to. So yeah, the upper registers on the Fyne Audio speaker are a bit of a problem for me, and they don't really integrate that well with the mids and the lows. It's almost like if you imagine a measurement graph. I don't measure speakers because I can't be bothered, but if you had a measurement graph, to my ears it would kind of go along reasonably flat and then all of a sudden tip up a lot in the top, and it's quite hard and difficult to control. So that is a bit of a loss for the 500 versus the Borea BR02, because actually the upper register in the BR02 is reasonably forgiving and it's got nice air, so I much prefer listening to that speaker for the highs. In the mids, well, yeah, the Triangle continues to win here because it's natural and lifelike, organic and textured, whereas that thinness continues into the mids for the F500. It's not too bad on male voices, and it's not bad in any way, but it's just not as nice as the Triangle. It's not as emotionally engaging, if you like. And then into the lows, I'd say that the speed of the Fyne Audio speakers is much better in the lows than the Triangles. Triangles can sometimes be a little bit sluggish, but you get more from the Triangle. It's more willing to party, more get up and go, more drive. Whereas with the Fyne Audio F500, you do need to have a subwoofer in there if you want to get any sort of oomph, although it does kind of give you, a bit of low end coming out of it, but it's not going to rock your world and make you want to dance. So it might sound at this point that I really prefer the Triangle to the F500. Well, I do, and frankly that's the one that I would want to listen to 9 times out of 10 over the Fyne Audio speaker, and that's just my preference. It's my subjective taste, because I like nice, easy but airy speakers that image well but engage me emotionally, and I just find with this speaker for the F500 it's so close to being great, but because it tries to nail so much, it goes too far. It's kind of like that very attractive kid at school. Maybe you had a mate at school who was very good looking and was very enthusiastic and wanted to try a bit of football and rugby and said, "Yeah, I can do that. I'm really good at football. I'm really good at rugby. I'm great at cricket. No problem. I can do all those things." And then finally he arrives and has to go at all of them, and yeah, he's all right, but actually he's not really great at any of them, and put it all together and you just feel like he's trying a little bit too hard. And that's what's happening for me, in my opinion, with the F500. It's just trying too hard to be all things to all men. And yes, there's loads of detail. Yes, there's amazing diffuse sound that comes out of it. And initially it's quite exciting and engaging, but after a long listening session, it really wears you down and actually starts to give me a bit of a headache. And I feel bad saying that, but I just didn't want to listen to it after a while because it was just too much. Just getting on my nerves a little bit, whereas with the Triangle I could listen to that for hours and hours on end. Right, I think I've rambled on for long enough in this series. I think you've probably got the gist of this. The winner of the first verses is the Triangle Borea BR02. The loser, knocked out, but certainly not down, is the Fyne Audio F500. If you own that speaker and you love it, continue to love it. This is just my subjective view. I'm not saying it's a bad speaker at all, and in many ways it's better and it's more beautiful to look at, but for my taste it's just not for me. Anyway, if you liked this review, please to like and subscribe. We've got another versus video coming up very shortly. That's a Dynaudio Evoke 20 versus the Dynaudio Special 40, and that's going to be a lot of fun as well. So we'll see you back here very soon.